Good morning, it's TenereGUY, and I'm gonna change the oil on my Super Tenere. First time. Oil doesn't need to be changed yet, but I've just put a lot of add-ons on this, and I'm still not finished. But I'm leaving on Friday for Alaska for a month or so. So I figured, hey, I'm just gonna change oil. It only has about 2,000 miles on it. I could almost get up to Alaska on an oil change and just pay somebody to do it. But I like AMSOIL synthetics, so I'm going to put that in this engine and in the rear drive differential. And I've got a T-Rex Racing bash plate on here. And what I like about that is right here, you can take this off and get your filter off. And I want to really show you, now this is on a side stand, so the oil was all coming this way. And if you look, there's your drain. Let's see if I can get it. There's your drain bolt right there, right through this hole. And you got another hole right here, and there's your drain. And if I take this wrench and come up through here, it easily reaches it, and it's pointing almost straight down when it's on the side stand. And it'll drain straight through there and straight through there. Hopefully I won't have a big mess. But I like the T-Rex Racing because I can leave this on. And since this is my first time, we're going to see how much of a mess I make. So let's get to it. Engine's been warmed up to about 200 degrees, and I let it cool for a couple minutes. Now we're going to drain the oil. As you can see, with a long socket, it just reaches right up in there, and it's going to pour almost straight down. And then I have another one right back here I've got to get in that hole too. Okay, I broke it free with the long socket, 6-sided socket. I like that when I'm messing around with bolts that I got a torque and everything. I can just spin this off now. I don't need oh, there you go. I don't need to get my wrench all oily. Look at that. Because of the placement of this hole, and it's meant to be on the side stand when you change it, that's how dirty it got. I just got a little bit on there, 6-sided, held that, and she's draining. Not a lot drained out of the engine because it's a dry sump, but I'll let that drain all the way. And I'm going to clean this up now and get after the second hole. If you've ever changed your oil on your motorcycle and then started up and realized you didn't put any oil in it, you say, well, that's a dumb thing to do. But when you got 2 teenagers or 5 or 10 messing around, it can happen. So I always line up my oil right there next to my oil fill, so I always know, hey, I didn't put any oil in this yet. So that's just another little tidbit I've learned over the years to help me out. All right, since this is a little harder to get to, so I put a short extension on there when I spun it off by hand. So I got my socket a little oily, but that oil is coming out. It's not terribly filthy, but it's got 2,500 miles on it, or 2,000 around there. But that one's got a lot more oil because that's the sump, since this is a dry sump machine. So we'll just let her drain out for a little bit. Okay, so that's draining out when it got really, really down to nothing. It's starting to hit the edge. So if T-Rex Racing hogged out about another 1/4 inch out of there, or maybe even an 1/8, that oil wouldn't hit at all, even when it's down to a small stream. But even then, it's just pooled a little bit there. You can see where it's pooling. And then just a little bit is running down that edge. But that's easily wiped up with a rag. No big deal, no big mess. I think the biggest mess will come from when I go after the filter. But with one of these pans, hey, I've made bigger messes changing oil on my trucks. Another thing I do is I took those bolts out. I put the front one, cleaned it up, put it on the front, and then cleaned up the back one, put it in the back, so I know exactly which hole they go back into. They should be universal, but you never know. some things with metal. Somebody torqued it funny or something like that. And I'll just put it. Now, I have always reused the washers. They're not too expensive to reuse, but in 40 some years of motorcycling and changing oil on trucks and vehicles, I've never had one leak. So I just reuse them. Okay, let's talk sizes. Now, I just tried to put in a 4mm hex socket, and it felt super tight. Now, if I would have got a little hammer and tapped it in, it probably would have done the job. But I got my 5/32 out, and it slid in there and perfect. So that's 5/32. And these bolts down here, if you haven't ever changed it, those are a 12mm. So that's what you need there. So T-Rex Racing, I'm going to use my 5/32 on that bolt right there. And there's a bolt right down there. I did not know. I was trying to pry this off. I'm like, why is this coming off? So there's a little bolt right down there. All right, so hopefully this will come off a lot easier. And I got that little bolt down there. Now these screws, they probably had 3-4 pounds of torque on them. It wasn't hardly anything. So, and I've learned over the years, use a little force if you have to, but if you gotta use too much, start looking around. And I did, and saw that. I thought it kind of latched in there. I was mistaken. You got to screw top and bottom. And with that lower screw off, that just came out easy as pie. So, made it simple. All right, so now I got to get after that filter, which is basically universal. All my Honda filters take the same filter, and I'm delighted to know that this takes the same filter. So, I don't have to buy a special one. Now I've got a filter wrench strap type, but with motorcycles usually I found this, and AMSOIL has a nice filter, fits their filters, and I use their filters, but it'll fit any filter going on a Honda or this Tenere. And I'm in no way affiliated with AMSOIL. I'm a preferred customer, just save money. Other than that, I don't make any money off them. One other reason I like this type of filter is I can put my torque wrench on that, and I'll torque that right to factory specs. So there's no question about over tightening or too loose or anything. So let's spin this off, see how the oil pours out of this thing. Let's go in from the side. Okay, so she's just pouring down. It's coming down and pouring out the first hole. So I'll just try to get a rag up in there, clean that off. Not too bad. Not making a whole mess. So far, so good. Okay, this was a tight fit with this filter like this, and until I got a screwdriver, just started pushing up for about, going around it for about 10-15 seconds, then she popped loose. But I'd rather have one snug than not snug enough. Okay, here's motorcycle filters. Now, usually I use these EA filters. They're good for many a mile. AMSOIL says you can go twice the mileage of your stock recommendation. So I can go 12,000 miles on this filter and this oil I'm going to put in, which is probably what I'll do going up to Alaska and wander around on my way back. These Wix filters, so you can see the part number on that too. Rock Auto had a super sale, so I got 20 of them at $1.50 a piece. So I'm like, dang, I can't argue with that, so I grabbed a bunch. And I'd probably just go to 10,000 miles on those. So Wix makes a good filter. Okay, I just you got to put some oil on that gasket so she doesn't bind up. And then we're just going to put it in here. Nice access. You can see how easy. I'm even doing this upside down and backwards with my right hand. There you go. So I'm going to put it on by hand. Now I'm going to put it on with my torque wrench. Yamaha says 12 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to do. And here we go. Let's see how close I got by hand. 2 pounds. 3 pounds, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pounds. If you're going to buy yourself a little wrench like this, make sure you put this in all the way like that. Okay, so it goes through, so it doesn't go on too deep and stick on once you're torquing it on. Now I just checked, and there is plenty of space to get your hand down in here and wipe all this up. You might have to use a little screwdriver to get it down in and drag the rag all the way, but once you get down to here, there's plenty of space to get your hand down in here up to that first hole, and going back here and getting all the way back any oil, and then wiping back through here. So you're not going to have a lot of oil residue there and everything. So I really like how they space that, so you can get in there. Per the factory service manual, oil filter 12 foot-pounds or 1.7 meters per kilogram, what, I don't know, foot, who knows. And then down here, it says 14 foot-pounds on both those. That is low. I'm used to around 22 foot-pounds on most oil drains on motorcycles. But don't over-torque it. Invest in some, even cheap torque wrenches are better than no torque wrench. Okay, I've got some expensive ones after years of cheap ones, and I sure do like them. So, here you go, 14 foot-pounds. Okay, both of these right here and here were 14 foot-pounds. And for you guys who've never done it yourself, as you push this out of the way, just push it with the rag and the few little drips that were maybe coming out, because I let them drip almost all the way. You know, just then the drip takes it. 14 foot-pounds sure doesn't seem like much. Let me tell you something. Those are way more than 14 foot-pounds when I took them off. I can tell you that much. And that was done by a factory Honda, well, not a factory Honda, but a Yamaha dealer mechanic. So he probably was up around 22, but I've taken plenty of 22 foot-pounds off, and it felt like more than that. Remember, you're going into aluminum, and one thing you don't want to do is rip your threads out with that steel bolt. I'm telling you, this T-Rex Racing is quality stuff so far. I haven't been disappointed with this bash plate. Bolts aren't even in there. I just fit it up in there easy, and it's just sitting there waiting to go. I'm probably going to do around 4 foot-pounds, you know, because it sure wasn't much to take that screw out. I was thinking about putting some blue Loctite on there, but that's for me to figure out. All right, little revision here. I took the top screw out and put the bottom one in first because it's easier to line up that way. Then the top, I don't know if because I was trying to pull on it with a screwdriver first before I learned, but it torqued out a little bit, but I got it close to where I got that in, and I decided to put blue Loctite on it. I torqued it to 5 pounds, but as I was going in, started tightening up here. I just grabbed a rubber mallet, whacked it right here, and just fit it right in tight again, and went to 5 foot-pounds, and she's buttoned up. And as far as I'm concerned, that's good for 12,000 miles on my AMSOIL, if not a little more, if I need to go. Or I just may stop by and have some oil shipped someplace so I can stop by a friend's house and change my oil. Anyway, all we got to do now is that's torqued. That's torqued. I always like to check twice. No extra washers around. I made sure the washers were on the bolts like they should be. And now we're going to go put some oil in it. And here's what the oil says. Let's get this focused. So 3.28 US quarts with oil filter cartridge replacement. With oil filter cartridge just a 3.6. Well, I'm going to put in the 3 1/3. I know everybody puts in 4. Since I'm going the distance, I might put in close to 4. All right, since I did it 3.6, I'm going to put in all 4 quarts, and I'll put in 3.5 quarts, start the engine up, let it circulate around, and then put in the rest. Okay, I just put in all 4 quarts. What the heck? It took it. So 4 quarts in, and I'll tell you right here, make sure you put a little oil on the O-ring, and don't over tighten it. It's the O-ring. We'll put some tension on it. If you over tighten it, you're not going to get it off unless you have a set of pliers on the bike. And there's your little sight glass. Let's zoom out. It's right by your brake pedal that you look through, right there. And she's showing about halfway. I still haven't figured this dry sump out, when to look at it, when not to. My KTM buddy said look at it within a minute of shutting it off. So I'll hop off next time and put it on the center stand and see where we're at. Anybody have a better way? Tell me in your comments. And there you go. We have an oil change. I'll fire it up and bring it back to this. Hold on. Okay, here's another little habit. Right when I'm done, I line my bottles up. I always have this facing out towards me, and I'll pour my old oil right back into it, and I can tell exactly where it's not on the other side, so I never overflow a bottle. And that way I can see how much oil I got out for how many miles I rode. Now this is the first time I ever changed the oil on this bike, about 2,000, 2,200 miles. I would expect to get 3.7 quarts if that's what I'm supposed to put in. All right. Okay, see, I just ran this thing for about a minute. No oil leaks out of my bolts or my filter, and see, there's no oil in there. It's one of those mysteries. I just run the engine. It works. All right, also, you can see in there, you might be able to get a strap wrench in there, but I had no leaks down there. And like I said, get yourself one of those cap. You can go to any AutoZone or something and get the right size. Just bring your filter in, make sure you do get the right size. That's it. And that's an oil change on my 2017 Tenere. It's going to Alaska in 6 days.